let's go back to the beginning. Let's start off, because, as for people who know a hero's journey, it normally starts off at the beginning where things are going real well. There's a turning point, some disaster, something happens in their life to make a change, and then things get better, and there's a new normal. So your previous normal, the beginning, you talked about, you went to high school, you got out, you got in the military. Give us a little bit more about that background. Tell us a little bit more about, who where you were and where you were there at the beginning.
Well, whenever I joined the military, that was a point in my life where I started to realize and recognize that I was capable of more things than I thought I was originally capable of doing. That's when I started to recognize my own ability to create my life the way that I wanted it to be if I focused myself in the right directions and did the right things and made the right choices that took me along the way. So I had great fun in the military. I had great success there. I got out and I entered civilian life, and I began to create different things, different projects for myself, and create different careers and business ventures that I wanted to pursue.
Interesting. So let me interrupt for a second. Let me ask you a question,
Sure.
because something you just said, I think doesn't go along with my view of the military, and I've got family members in the military. So you said you realized that you could make something. You could make something more for yourself. It seems to me that a lot of people, when they think about military people, it's more of this command and control structure, that you're not thinking about how to create stuff, that you're being told exactly what to, exactly what to do. So I'm really intrigued in that beginning part in the military, and in that part, how did you go in an environment that, to me, on the outside, seems as very command and control and ordering structure, to saying, wait a minute, I can make things for myself, and I can control things, and I can make things different and better?
Well, one of the things, all right, we're understanding that the military is far different today than it was whenever I went in. I went in the late 80s, right? Dating myself here a little bit, but I went into the Army in 1987, and it was a different military then. It was a different way of, people had different ways of doing things. The military itself had different ways of doing things back then. But one of the things they did, and they do this to everyone, and sometimes people don't recognize it or they're not able to capitalize on it, but the military strips away all your outer layers of gunk. The same way that you go to a coach to get that done, the same way that you go to a psychotherapist to get that done, whatever the case may be, the military strips all that stuff away from you. And depending on what you're doing as a job in the military, it can be more extreme for some than it is for others. And they strip you down to your actual core, and then they build you from there. And as they're building you, you start to recognize that you can do things that you've never done before. And if you allow that recognition, if you take that on with the proper perspective, then you recognize that you can, if you could survive that, if you can get through that, if you can create a desirable outcome from all of that, then you can do it anywhere you want in your life.
Excellent. And I love how you aligned it with coaching, about how that's what coaches do. If you get a really good coach, not necessarily do they strip you down, but they teach you how to strip away all the layers of gunk in your life, to open you up for the new possibilities. That's awesome. So then you got out of the military, and you had already started to say, you already started to make a different. You started to change, which is interesting.
Absolutely.
Before I leave getting out of the military, I think you have a typical story to a lot of people. I'm not saying you went into the military to change, but a lot of people go into the military because they know they have to get the gunk stripped away, and they have to figure out, and being in that really strict environment is a great way to do it. Kind of like being with a coach at this point, when you need to strip everything away. You need to work with somebody who's gotten unstuck before, to get everything stripped away. So let me ask you one fairly personal question. Did you go into the military knowing you had gunk that you needed to strip away, or was it being there that illustrated that fact?
No, it was just being there that illustrated the fact. I joined the military because I was 17 years old, needed some college money, and I wanted to jump out of airplanes. That's why I mean, at the time I was 17. I mean, you think about that. I just graduated high school. Hey, let's go on an adventure. Let's, I don't want to go to college right now. Let's go on an adventure. Let's go do something. I want to jump out of airplanes. So I did. And that was part of what started this whole thought process for me about being able to create your own circumstances in your life the way you wanted to. I wanted to do it, so I did it. And anybody can actually do that if they allow themselves the proper mindset to be able to allow themselves to do it. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's why it's so critical to work, as we'll talk more about working with coaches later, but that's why it's so critical to work with a coach who's been there. I mean, like Joe, who has been there and who sat there and went in for one reason and then realized that they could, make a change. So, since we only have an hour show and I could probably interview you for the rest of the day about your experiences, I think what I'm taking away from this whole thing, and just correct me with a no if I'm wrong, but you went in for one reason. Your eyes were open that there was different things you could do, and through that you've also been able to, and this is future, we'll talk about it later, is develop tools and techniques based on your military experience that can help people recognize quicker, faster, and easier with less pain how to recognize that, how to do it in their own life. I mean, is that a fair, quick summary?
Yeah, that's that's very fair. That's a good summary.
Excellent. So thank you. So you got done with the military, got civilian life. You started doing some stuff, and at some point, and I don't mean to diminish it, but at some point, it went from being, successful being in the military to getting out, being, at least mildly successful in civilian life, to having some challenges. So and that really becomes where that whole turning point comes in. So when did you, before we get to the actual turning point, when can you pick a point where things might have been going good and then started to go down, like a point that people may recognize in their own self that they might be headed towards a downtime?
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.